Project.
Even I know I've been trained to do that too.
Welcome to AT Banter, the podcast where we discuss anything and everything regarding the world of assistive technology. With our hosts, Steve Barkley, Rob Minot, and Ryan Fleury. Now, let's banter.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of AT Banter. I, once again, am Rob Minot, and I am joined today by Steve Barkley.
Hello.
And Ryan Fleury.
Hello.
And also, we have another in-studio guest. This is our second in-studio guest, officially. Today we have Steph Kirkland, the Executive Managing Director of the VocalEye Descriptive Arts Society.
Enter applause here.
Enter applause.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be your second in-studio guest.
Well, thanks. Thank you. Thank you for agreeing to it so far.
So far.
So far. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so far. I'm not gonna...
Surprise.
I know where the door is. Okay.
That's right. It's not like Adam, who we had chained to the to the table.
I was going to say we did have our first studio guest walk out on us.
We did?
Well, he's not here now. So.
Oh, well, that's true. That's true. He got away. He broke through the chains.
Imagine Steph's going to do the same later.
Probably.
Okay. So, Steph.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about the VocalEye Descriptive Arts Society.
VocalEye is a non-profit society that was formed after Kickstart Disability Arts and Culture started a descriptive program of its own. That was the first in Canada in 2009. They brought in a trainer from the United States, and I was part of a team to be trained in audio description. And we describe live theater for people who had vision loss. After 2 seasons of doing that, they could no longer sustain the program. We were kind of growing at that point, and so they offered to transfer the equipment to us if we started a nonprofit society and continued the work, which we did. And so it's been now 4 years. We're still hanging in there, and we've grown quite a bit, describing at the Arts Club Theatre is our largest theatre partner, and we also describe in Surrey at the Surrey Arts Centre, in Richmond at the Gateway. We've described 2 full seasons at the Belfry in Victoria, and we're also describing at Bar on the Beach for the first time this year. And we've added all their events to our season, the Pride Parade, which is coming up at the end of July, and a few other events along the way. So we're responding a lot to community requests and demands as well.
So you've pretty much been with it from the start. Yes, as a describer first, and then managing the program for Kickstart, and then founding the society. Yes. Got it. And what is the training like to be a describer? Like that, is it fairly intense? It was intense, partly because due to time restrictions and time, and it's always time and money, isn't it? You know, so because they had to bring in an instructor from the U.S. because this is non-existent. It had been non-existent in Canada before our program began, so we had to bring someone in. And that costs money, of course. So it was an intense weekend. So a Friday evening, two full days of very intense work with a small group. And then, but that was just the beginning, you know, and then the instructor was brought up for a second, more intensive, advanced session. And so we then were able to put some of those instructions into practice. And that's where we really started to learn. We got feedback from our listeners, and that was, probably the most instructive of all. And we were able to then adapt some of what we were taught to the actual practicalities of delivering this service to people so that it's useful for them. Right. You know? Yeah.
How many describers do you have now?
If we include myself, and I only describe when my other describers aren't available, I have 5 other describers and myself right now. Mm-hmm.
And are there a lot of programs like this in the States?
Not like VocalEye. I think we're following a model more like the VocalEye's plural in the UK, which is a nonprofit that serves many different organizations in the community. So we are like a community resource. So we've got this bunch of equipment. We've got some trained describers, and we are available then for any theater or arts organization then to employ us to describe their performance or event.
And do you find that a lot of theaters are interested in having you come and describe their events?
More and more are, yes. And the other model then is for the theaters themselves to get their own equipment, to hire their own describers, and then pretty much just describe their own season. And I think that seems to be the case in the U.S. for the most part, and it's also what Stratford is doing as well in Stratford, Ontario, the Stratford Shakespeare Festival.
Excellent. Mm-hmm. And how long is the course, or the training rather, to be a describer? Like, or how long does it take?
Well, most of the trainings that I know of in the U.S. are about, again, that 3-day kind of introduction to the basic principles of description with some practice and that kind of thing. I think our colleagues in the UK may have a different kind of program, and I just received a word that my grant applications were successful to apply for. I just applied to create our own program to train describers. So I'm hoping that will be launched next year, because we do need more describers right here in BC. So we're expanding, and it's we need to have the skills to fill it.
And do you find that you do you practice just when you're walking around like the grocery store? Do you find yourself practicing in your head describing the cereal aisle? Not as much as
when I was training and when I first started and when I was describing more now, because I'm so much more into the writing grants and running the program that I'm not describing as much. But you do go into a different part of your head, and that very thing happens. How do I describe? And then you're in an interesting situation. How would I describe that? How would I do that? And describing things as they happen, that's also great training and very challenging.
Yeah, I think it's something that you take for granted, like just in your everyday life when you're, but when it comes to, how would I describe this action or what this person is actually doing? It must take a different part of the brain to really sort of be able to dissect that and then put it out there, especially in a live event.
True. We have the luxury of, with our theater partners, because they have runs that are a few weeks long, at least, if we're lucky, we get to observe the show a few times. And that helps us to write notes. And then as we're creating those notes, it's about determining what's the most important, what's the most meaningful of all the information, of all that I'm able to see. What is the most important? Because I can't describe everything I see. Nobody would want to hear that anyway. And it's just not, it's impossible to do that in between lines of dialogue. So we have to choose the visual elements that are supporting the story and fit them in, and find the right language as well to convey those actions, so that the listener can create a picture in their own minds that is in keeping with the context of the action, so the world of the play, and it also may reflect the sensibilities of the character and the quality of the action.
Well, if it's done well too, my wife and I saw Wicked in Las Vegas, and it was described, and it was just amazing. The amount of detail that they go into describing the set, scenery, everything that goes on during that play. It was quite amazing.
Did they describe that just before the show?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, and those sets are incredibly elaborate and detailed. Mm-hmm.
Kind of taking a step back, what's the process like? Like when you come on board to describe a show that's coming up, like how closely do you work with the troupe? I mean, you mentioned that you get to work with them maybe in rehearsals. Do you ever have access to like the script, or like how much work sort of ahead of the show is done?
There's quite a bit of work done ahead of time. We are given a script, and then the describers are allowed to view the show live when it's already open. So before, after rehearsals. And so then we get the audience response as well, which is very important because we want to be able to make sure that the laughs are also conveyed if the laughs are based on physical actions. So the describer views the show 3 times at least, and then works with the script and makes notes on all of the action and also all of the design elements, the set characters and costumes, because they will do an introduction prior to the show and give some of that information when we do our sound check as well. So there's a minimum of 20 hours of preparation, minimum, for each show. And then if it's a longer show, like the Bard shows are almost 3 hours long, and so with 20 characters, and it's a significant amount of preparation that goes into those shows.
And is it generally one describer per show, or do 2 describers sort of sign on to one show so that they can fill in for each other, or how does that work?
We used to, the model that we were trained under, we worked in partners, pairs of 2. So one person would be responsible for the Act 1 description. One person would be, then that person would then choose to describe the set or the costumes, and the other partner would describe Act 2 and do whichever the set or costumes that the first person wasn't doing. And we did that for a while, and I, as a describer, I just found that very frustrating and actually more challenging because it seemed there was a lot of work to do, and then added on top of our preparation, we would, could we find the time as partners to get together and compare our notes and come up with a common vocabulary and all of that? That was very challenging. And so I suggested that we split it up so that one describer do just the design, the pre-show notes, and then one describer do all of the action, just to save so that I felt that I had some sense of completion in one of those areas. And I tried that with one of my describers, Rick Waynes. We were the first to sort of try this out because he was open to that as well. And when we did that, the feedback that we actually got from our listeners was, "Oh wow, there was just one. You went all the way through, and it made a big difference to me. There was just that one consistent voice all the way through." And when we heard that most people preferred that, that was really what got our other describers on board to try it. It's not just my own personal preference, but so that's the model that we're working with now. It's one describer voice for the whole show.
Well, it kind of makes sense too, because when you're experiencing a show like that, you develop a relationship with the narrator as much as you develop a relationship with the characters of the story, and so I can understand how that would be the case.
It's true. And people have different styles. We have, of course, with their different gender as well. If you have a female describing Act 1, a male coming in to describe Act 2. But aside from that, there are different sensibilities. Some, we can't really describe things objectively, and so our own subjective filters are going to come through, and our own vocabulary and our own sensibilities. And so that's what we are giving you that. We are giving you our perspective on this show. And we want to do that in a way that supports the production and the story as much as possible. But you're still going to get, the flavors of the filters of the describers in there for sure.
Have you ever had to describe a show that you just really didn't like?
Surprisingly not. There are some shows that I've worked on that on the first viewing, I thought, oh dear, how am I going to, because we can't editorialize or comment in any way, on what we're watching. And
a poor actor walks on stage.
That's right. A little bit critique, or let it come into your voice in any way. It's bending over there, unless it's reflecting of the story as opposed to my own opinion of what he might be doing. I find that after I watched these questionable shows, or the ones that I had hesitations about, by the time I got to describe them, I was in love with them in a way. There's something about watching. I have a theater background too, so I'm often watching my colleagues, people that I know. But I've done this, and I know how much blood, sweat, and tears it takes to put on a show, even a bad show, what might seem like a bad show. But watching it again and again, I just have my appreciation just grows and grows, and my ability to see what the director and the company are trying to achieve increases. And so by the time I describe it, that is what I'm communicating. And so all the critical pants have just like fallen off. It's really, I'm there and I feel like I'm part of the company and I'm part of that show.
Well, in a big way, you really are. You're like, an unseen performer, really.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And if we're really doing our jobs, what we really aim for is that even someone who had vision, if they were listening to our description, would find their experience enhanced, that it wouldn't be distracting, that it would enhance their experience. That's the kind of the gold bar that we aim for.
Right. Yeah. I know I've had feedback from people who've seen the shows at the Belfry, and a couple of times when somebody with a visual impairment has been using the equipment, they've had somebody else who is sighted sitting beside them just trying it out, and the feedback was that it was excellent and that it really did enhance the show for them. That's great to hear. While we're on that topic, can I just take this opportunity to thank you, Steve, and Aroga for your support of the live description program in Victoria. We wouldn't have happened without you. Thank you. Thank you. I wish we could so carry on with it for the time being, but money's tight. Buy things. I know. Buy lots of things from Aroga. Sorry, there's my shameless plug for the show. I know it's tight everywhere, but thank you so much. Our patrons in Victoria and the Belfry, very appreciative. Excellent. Well, we were happy to do it, and hopefully we'll be able to do it again in the future. Fingers crossed. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, talk to me about the idea, the notion of live description versus, say, normal descriptive audio. Like, there is a subtle difference between the two, is there not? Well, it's just the luxury of having something on tape. So it's fixed, it's timed, and you have, in the film and TV industry, usually more money. You may not have more time, but you've got more money. So you can hire professional writers to go through the script and the recorded material and create the best script possible, best description possible. And then you can also hire professional voice talent to match the action as best, according to your artistic sensibilities. And then that talent reads the script, and then you can record and edit and, re-record it. And so everything is timed perfectly. And, so there are certain advantages for sure in getting, a perfect polished product in that way. And you need the equipment, technology, and all of those things to go with it. So we are the very low-tech version. And then when we do it live, it's live. And, like theater, it's, I call it, MacGyvering is like actually one of my skills. We just, and then, you learn that in the theater, when you don't have the full gold throne and velvet capes, you get the spray paint and you do whatever you can to create the impression of that. Right. And you make it work. And so we have equipment that I refer to affectionately as tin cans and string. It's very, it's very low tech. It's battery operated radio equipment, really. It's FM, uses an FM signal, and it's affordable. It gives us a tremendous amount of flexibility. And when we're describing, we are creating the script, we're voicing it, and there is a real art to delivering the description in terms of timing, but also in terms of the words that we choose, and also our vocal inflections and how we choose to enhance the description that way. So there are all these different levels that we're working on. It's incredibly rewarding when it works. We can kind of feel when it works, when the timing is just right and we just kind of nail it. Especially the most rewarding for me when I do nail a laugh, when I'm just, when we're describing a farce or something like that, and it's a really complicated bit of business. And I worked to find the wording that's just the right wording at the right timing, and so that everyone can share the laugh at the same time. And that's when I feel that land, it's just so gratifying. So gratifying. Right. Yeah. And I guess, with live theater, there are things that are going to change and that are going to be done differently from night to night. Does that ever throw the describers for a loop? Like, do you ever, Have you ever been really surprised by the actors doing something that they didn't do the night before and it screws you up?
Well, things do happen because it's live. So, and you have to be on your toes. So even though we're prepared, we have a script that we use as a guide, and we have to be watching all the time as well. So, and there have been a couple of instances. In The Odd Couple, there was a scene where Oscar was at the poker table with his buddies, and the sandwiches are, going around the table, and Oscar grabs the plate away from Felix, and the pickle went flying. And normally it just went, it just sort of it would just sort of fall off the stage into the gap between the audience and the stage. This time, it landed on an audience member. and then the actors paused a moment and then, kind of carried on. And then the audience member threw the pickle back on stage. Another big laugh. And then one of the characters, one of the poker players, of course, saw the pickle land on the carpet and then bent over, picked it up, and took a big bite out of it. Just the house, and of course the audience, just this huge reaction. So, we absolutely want to describe these things when they happen. And it turned out, of course, that one of the people in the audience that was hit with the pickle was one of our patrons, Darwin. And it was just, and so we were congratulating him for providing one of the larger laughs in the show, and although it was a very funny show to start with, but so that was a lot of fun. And another farce that a doorknob fell off just at the right time, so these things can happen, and often it really adds to the show, actually. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it must be a little stressful that describing, having to be sort of on your toes for the entire run of the show. You can't really get complacent, I guess.
Oh no, I mean there's some. It depends on the show. There's some shows that are very the dialogue driven, and there's not a lot of action, and maybe just a few characters. Educating Rita was like one example where there were many scenes there, and it was one location, his office, pretty much, and the two of them, were just conversing usually in his office, and there wasn't a lot of. It was naturalistic, so there wasn't any trapezes flying in or anything unusual happening in most of the scenes, but occasionally there would be. So it's, in that case, the challenge is not to drift away too much in between descriptions. And other shows, the Shakespeare that I just described, Romeo and Juliet on Sunday, and I couldn't, take my eyes off anything. There's so much going on all the time. Such a big show. So yeah, and I usually stand for the whole just to kind of keep my energy up. Yeah.
And you don't describe every night the show of the show's run, do you? You pick and choose?
No, because of resources. So we choose one performance, and I know that's not convenient for everyone, but we try to give all our dates as far in advance as we can so people can plan. And that one performance is the one that we describe. And if demand increases, we may be able to describe a second performance, perhaps, of more popular shows.
Right.
So that's where we are. That's where we're at right now. Mm-hmm.
And so typically, like, any one genre more challenging than the other? That, like, I can imagine that maybe describing something like Romeo and Juliet is very different than trying to describe, I don't know, Newsies or something, right? Like, maybe a musical would be a little bit more challenging because there's more choreography, there's more going on. Is that the case?
Well, it depends on the production as well. It depends on what they've decided to do. They can add in all kinds of things unexpectedly that aren't necessarily written in, and but musicals can be challenging as well because if we've got big choruses and lots of different locations, and again big casts. Big casts are challenging. Big cast and lots of locations. So Les Mis, that was challenging.
I can imagine.
And in that way, Shakespeare is also challenging because of all the locations, all the characters, and keeping those characters straight is that's part of what we do for those plays is insert the character names just to kind of help people along. Because when I'm watching it visually, I have the visual cue of who that character is. But if you're just listening and there are that many voices and some of them are similar, it can be hard to follow. So, we pop the names in when it's not obvious.
Do theaters or troupes, do they generally come to you guys, or do you guys go to them and say, hey, do you want do you want your play described, or how does the process of that work?
Initially, the Meg Torrell was the coordinator of the program initially at Kickstart, and all of her groundwork really laid the foundation for what we're doing right now. And she was instrumental in going to the theaters in Vancouver and North Vancouver. She went everywhere to sell this program, and was successful at the Vancouver Playhouse, which is where we described our first show, The Miracle Worker, in 2009. And then the Arts Club came on board as well with shows at the Stanley. So with the Playhouse and the Stanley, and then the Gateway, and I think we had Presentation House in North Van. So that was the first season that we started with. So by the time I came on board with the managing doing the project management, we were able to maintain these relationships, and then to expand onto the Granville Island stage once we lost the Playhouse. And then I've been so overwhelmed running a nonprofit that I haven't been able to really go out and solicit a lot of new partners. But what has happened when someone has requested, for instance, we had requests from Surrey. Actually, our board member, Linda Weber, who wasn't a board member at the time, said, well, what about describing in Surrey, in the Surrey Arts Centre? And when I contacted the Surrey Arts Centre and told them about our program, they replied right away. They were right on top of it. I went out there, we did an equipment test, and they were right on board. And we actually did our very first touch tour out there in 2012. So when I get a request like that, I will follow up on it right away. And I've had many requests for Broadway across Canada shows at the Queen Elizabeth Theatre. These are the Newsies and so on. And we've been able to do two shows, Wicked and The Lion King, because they had longer runs, and also because of community demand. The Queen Elizabeth Theatre is a roadhouse, essentially, so they don't really have a lot of control over what gets described. So that's the incoming show, the producer. Right. And because the community was so keen, and I said, please just contact them. If you really want it, let them know. And they did. So the Queen Elizabeth then contacted the producers at Broadway across Canada, who then got in touch with me and said, hey, we're hearing about what's going on here. How do you, tell us about this description thing. And so we were able to then work out a partnership for those two productions. And now I notice that their seasons are quite a bit shorter runs at the Queenie, of 10 days or less. So that makes it a little more challenging, but I haven't given up. And our equipment also faces some challenges in that huge theater. So that's something else that I'm working on. And then there's the ticket price issue. So there are few larger hurdles, barriers at that venue with those shows, but I am working on those because I know those are the shows that everyone wants to go to, and we definitely want to describe them. So we're still working on that.
Are you going to be doing the Book of Mormon?
Oh, I wish. No, again, it's still got a short run. It's like just less than 2 weeks. So because of that, it's hard to get the describers in, and then, to get our group in and to get any kind of discount, it would mean for us to have the most time to prepare our description, then we would want to schedule our description for the last weekend, which is, when they want to, I guess it's harder to get the inventory for discount seats and that kind of thing.
Right.
So
yeah, I think that show is almost sold out already. So
yes. So I'm hoping it'll.
For my wife.
Yeah, I'm hoping it'll come back maybe for a longer run and anyway, and so we'll see what we can do, if there's anything we can do with these shorter run visits. But it's something I'm working on. Yeah.
You mentioned touch tours. Can you elaborate as to what those are?
Yes, touch tours are, again, these are something that I know our colleagues in London, where they have an amazing program there. They've really set the bar for me and are my kind of model, that has inspired me all along, and they still do. They offer touch tours at many of their theaters before the show. So there are a lot of theaters in London that have, they have their own venue, of course, and they have a bar, and so it's easier for them to have a tour an hour and a half or so before curtain. Patrons are brought into the theater, and then they're given a tour of the stage and props costumes, an introduction, maybe to even some of the cast members.
Right.
So we, of course, were keen to do the same thing here, but we have there's a few more restrictions here with unions and again, money and so on. And so what we've found was, what about after the show? Could we do something after the show? And that seemed to be possible. So people are essentially volunteering their time after the show. And that's, again, where people can be a little more relaxed. Mm-hmm. Nobody's worrying about the prop or costume having to be preset somewhere.
Right.
And so that's what we're doing. So we wait until the audience clears. We bring our VocalEye members close to the stage, just do a little introduction there and bring out some props, costumes, and then bring people onto the stage. We just did that with Romeo and Juliet, and many of the members of the cast, I was so surprised, came out to join the touch tour, to answer questions. They were bringing their props and costume pieces out. And the crew, the staff, the cast, they were just wonderful in their participation, so generous with their time on a 2-show day. And the patrons seem to just be thrilled with that experience. I need to ask some of our patrons have experienced both touch tours before the show and touch tours after, and so I need to consult with them about the benefits of both. I'm hoping that after the show is at least a good substitute. If not, perhaps there might be some advantages. I don't know.
Well, before the show, the costumes aren't sweaty.
Well, this is true. Well, they don't let us touch the sweaty costumes, but
especially some of those Shakespearean outfits.
That's right.
Falstaff's padding. Yes, I know. I was wondering if they had 2 sets. I thought they may have 2 sets, and then we could. But they do just work with one. So we're going to get a measuring tape, and
And I noticed on the website there a mention of a theater buddy. What can you explain to us? What exactly a theater buddy is?
Theater buddies are our volunteers who've been trained in basic sighted guiding techniques, and they're available to meet our patrons who normally travel alone, who may find getting to some of our venues a little tricky, especially our venues on Granville Island. When we first started describing there, when I asked some of our patrons, I said, would you what about Granville Island? Would you go there? And they said, oh no, it's too tricky. It's too hard to get to. And this was one of the barriers that came up for our patrons. So how to address that? So what, our patrons who would like a guide, then if they can make it to transit stop. So for our Arts Club and Granville Island theaters, the meetup location is Broadway and Granville. So it's fairly easy to get to by transit. And then from there, they meet their buddy, and then the buddy escorts them to the venue, assists them with their tickets and their seating and their equipment, and then escorts them back up to the meetup location after the show.
And so in general, how many volunteers do you have? We
probably have at least a dozen volunteers. But again, it's availability, and this dictates also our describer rotation as well. And not everybody's available for every show. And we only have so many comp tickets from our theater partners as well for buddies. So we're limited, and our demand right now has been, we're not sure. From show to show, how many requests we'll get. So we tentatively book in 2 buddies for each show, and then we're going to play it by ear. And with Bard on the Beach being a little even trickier, we're kind of working with a ride share program, but I don't know. This is again, it's I have these ideas, and then trying to actually put them into practice, trying to realize them is, a whole other thing, But it would be great if we had our own little VocalEye shuttle. I would love to have that, where we could just, pile in people at the meetup location and take them to easily take them to Bard on the Beach or the Pride Parade or Theater Under the Stars or wherever we could, So that's on our wish list. If anybody out there.
So we've talked a lot about theater. Mm-hmm. What other events in the city are you guys involved in?
Well, we're excited to do the Vancouver Pride Parades. This will be our second parade. Rick and Terry, our designated Pride Parade describers, and they're our most senior describers as well. So they worked as a team last year. So we found a way, again, MacGyvering our equipment to take two microphones at once. And so they sort of tagged off on the description of all of the participants. We were given it's called a parade Bible. So it's a listing of all the participants with brief descriptions. So one of the describers would read that description, and then the other would actually describe the appearance of their float or of their participants. And then we just went back and forth, and they have a great relationship together as well. So there was a lot of friendly banter between them, and it was really a fabulous event, and the feedback we received was great. So we're really looking forward to that again. And we also described the ghost train for the first time last year, the ghost train in Stanley Park. That was a lot of fun. And what else are we doing?
Do you use your spooky voices when you're doing it?
Spooky voices. Sometimes, yes. We want to. It's called sympathetic voice. Yes, we do.
See, Steve, you could do this.
That's right.
You could be a describer.
That's right.
Absolutely. Take me out to the fireworks or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the other thing we're doing now. Thank you for mentioning that. So another request that came from actually from one of our board members, Colin Van Ushelen, asked if we'd ever thought of describing fireworks. And I thought, no. It would actually honestly never occur to me. And that was a kind of wake-up call for me right there. Just like, how many assumptions am I making about what people with vision loss might find interesting to have described, So, hey, take a note here.
I think Rick and I, our service manager, Rick, could probably find you the perfect person for the fireworks. We were at the fireworks one year, and there was this woman who was behind us, and she was on something. I don't know what she was on, but she hollered through the fireworks, and every time one went up, she'd go, higher! Wow! She was just so enthusiastic about every firework that went up. She was hysterical.
See, really, she's a born describer.
Oh yeah, she really added to the experience for me. So,
wow.
And you're sighted.
Yeah, there you go. See, that's the level of description that we're looking
just
for.
Enhance the experience that much more.
Colors.
Mm-hmm. Well, when we tried it out, and I tried it out, and I tried our basic verbal description technique. I was not very happy with it, and Colin, although he was polite about it, I don't think was very happy. I couldn't get it to sound anything like a bunch of stream of jargon. You get caught in the play-by-play. You can't really get the sense of the big picture or all the other elements that are going on in that kind of visual display that's so rich and layered. And
you'd almost need an education in fireworks, like what the fireworks are.
I did do that. I actually talked to Colin about that because he knows a lot about fireworks, and I did research on the names of the shapes and all of that because he was familiar with them. But I found I was just repeating those names over and over again with throwing in some color, and then but I couldn't also at the same time describe the quality of the effect, the layering, the rhythm, the location, because there are effects that happen on lower on the barge and then higher in the sky, and the level of saturation. I couldn't begin to bring any of that to bear. So it wasn't until there was a huge blast of effects. It was sort of the culmination of the set, and most of the embers had disappeared except this one big chunk that was still glowing and falling very slowly. And I was describing it just verbally like this. And Colin said, "Oh, is it still falling?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Trace out the rate on my arm and until it disappears." And so I did that, and it kept going and going and going and going and going until poof, there it was in the water. And so for both Colin and myself at that time, like that was the most satisfying, accurate description, of the evening, I felt. And so we got thinking about that, and like, how could we take that further? And so the largest canvas on the body is the back. And so if the person with vision loss is sitting facing the fireworks, then the sighted person behind them drawing as best they can, with their hands, these effects and giving them a sense of, again, the intensity,
Right.
the location, the shape, and then we have our voice available to enhance the shapes as well, to reinforce the shapes, to add color, and to add some poetic imagery as well, instead of just the literal labels. Like it's like a haystack on fire, or a river of tears, or whatever
Wow.
kind of the feeling that the describer gets. They're open to whatever comes to their minds.
Can you
as
give us
well.
a sample
of
describing a firework?
verbally? Flaming haystack, in the poetic sense. But some of the technical names are flower names. The peony is one of the most common, and so that is it's a sort of a puffball. So when the stars, which are the bright points of light that explode from the center, create a round sphere outside of the explosions, and they don't have a trail behind them. So that's the difference between that's what would be a peony, which just has these stars in this sphere, and the chrysanthemum then explodes out into a sphere, but it leaves trail. Each star leaves a trail as it moves outward. So I would be doing that with my fingers, doing the center explosion and the star's shape, or dragging my fingers out for the trails,
Right.
that kind of thing. And then I would speak, red chrysanthemum, golden, golden peonies, silver.
Does the timing of the explosion, because you get the light first and then you get the boom that follows, does that throw you at all when you're trying to describe?
There's so much going on. We really just try to get in as much as we can.
Right.
And again, it's attention based to focus again on what's most interesting, to describe the effects, the new effects. So we get the common ones, you get used to that, you get that vocabulary kind of happening.
Right.
And then they'll do something really kind of spectacular. And so you spend more time, what is that? What is so spectacular about that? The size of it? Is it, the shape, or, and try to find a way to convey that.
Yeah, it's got to be incredibly challenging.
Really challenging. Yeah.
Because there's no rehearsal. There's no.
No.
You gotta be on your feet.
Yeah.
The entire time.
Yeah.
And it's such a profoundly visual medium. That's tough.
It is, and we've wondered if it would be at all useful, but the feedback that we've received is that it does stimulate the vision in the receiver's mind. It's about them being able to paint a picture, and if they have a memory of fireworks as well, and those are the people that we've worked with on this project so far. We haven't brought in people, although I've invited people who have been born without vision to try this out, to see if it would be at all useful. But there's not much interest so far,
Right.
to try it. But that would be the next level, to see, is it does it bring you anything? Because what for Colin was such an important part of having the fireworks described is not only does it remind him of many times that he's enjoyed the fireworks when he was sighted, but it's an opportunity when the public comes together at this free event and to be included in that event. When he's mentioned a number of times being on the beach and everything goes quiet, and that sense of suspension, or when people gasp and there's just this incredible response, and he doesn't know what that's about, and to be left out of that, and how so when you're included, it makes a huge difference. And we've also had that kind of feedback as well at the Pride Parade, to be included, to know what's going on.
Right.
To not be, just at sea, left at sea, and not understanding what's happening, what people are laughing at, what's going on. So.
And are there any events that are going on in the city that are kind of on your wish list, or even any shows?
Wish list. Well, aside from our Broadway Across Canada shows, wish lists include, sort of long range would be dance, and that would involve also kind of workshops and more experiential opportunities for participants, so that we could create a vocabulary together for dance, and they could actually experience some of the movements in their own bodies, as well as being able to feel the dancers in positions and speak with the choreographers and that kind of thing. And that's kind of a long distance wish. Public art, that's another that's been on my kind of back burner for a long time, to be able to do public art tours where we would have maquettes, because I know the 3D printing is becoming more accessible these days, and if we could have smaller versions of the public art installations that people could feel, and we could also supplement that again with verbal description, and then they could actually feel the work in person as well. So that's, again, kind of a dream down the road.
For some reason, the idea of doing a People of Walmart
that's right.
keeps coming into my head. Just sit at a Walmart with people and describe what they're wearing.
Yes, there's a woman in leopard skin spandex who is. Yeah.
Well, that kind of everyday description, this is something that we were in terms of the training that we're going to be creating. This is on my wish list for that, is that I can offer that kind of training for anyone, this kind of introductory everyday description. So you don't need any special equipment for that. You take a partner who doesn't have vision out, and you describe. And I think that's what a lot of people are already doing. And so they can enhance their techniques. And then certainly for people who don't have those techniques at all, it's an opportunity to learn and to try it out.
Talk a little bit about the funding, and like how do you guys get funding, or how that's probably a loaded question.
It's magic. I was like, oh, heavy lifting. Oh my goodness.
If only it were magic, right?
If only I know. The money tree. What I wouldn't anyway. The challenges. One of the biggest challenges we faced initially as a new nonprofit society is that we weren't eligible for anything for the first year. And then there's funding cycles and so on. So it was a year and a half before we actually received any funding at all.
Wow.
It was do or die. I am not kidding you. And we were able to get that funding in a couple of ways. We luckily received a fiscal sponsorship from the Canadian Council of the Blind. So as a chapter of the CCB, who has a similar mandate that we have for increasing social and recreational activities for people who have vision loss, it's kind of a natural fit for us. So to have their fiscal sponsorship as a charity then allowed us to apply for a foundation grant, and our application to the Vancouver Foundation was successful. It was our first successful grant, and we owe everything to the Vancouver Foundation. I tell you, I would not be here without the Vancouver Foundation. It was their confidence that really allowed us to continue. And so with that grant, I was then able to apply for, because we'd been operating, so as you can call it. So then I was eligible to apply to the city and to the province gaming. But these are only project grants, because as a new organization, that's all you can do. And right. So I was successful with project grants, but it's kind of, there are only so many project grants you can apply for. So now we're at a point where we need to get some more core funding, because we have a year-long program now. It's nonstop. It's all year round. And so that's the next phase. And so my fingers are crossed that we'll be able to jump to that next phase. Yeah.
Right, I understand you, but you do some fundraising events.
Without our board members doing Tales from the Blind Side, where would we be with that? Because this is our the Mooses Down Under is our sponsor for that event, and this is when we didn't have any money coming in our first year. That was really that kept us afloat, and Aroga again has donated some wonderful prizes for our fundraising efforts. So Tales from the Blind Side is a very special kind of event that's close to my heart, because we are telling stories from the community. People who have vision loss are telling true stories, and that everybody needs to hear. And it's a great event. And we've been able to raise some significant funds through that event, and it's happening this year. November the 5th is our next one. Yeah,
and it's a lot of fun. I've been there the last 2
Saturday.
years, and I got to get these guys out because it's a lot of laughs.
Yeah, you got to get you telling some stories as well. Yeah.
When is your next one?
It'll be Saturday, November the 5th, so it's actually Guy Fawkes Day. The last three Tales from the Blind Side were in September. We've had to shift our timeline because of conflicts at Moose's. So this is a more convenient time for them, and because they're such fabulous, generous hosts, we're going with the November slot. And once again, Linda and Amy were going to do an awesome job getting fabulous prizes. I don't know how they do it. They get wonderful prizes from many local businesses and supporters in the community who donate fabulous things, and we have a great time. It's just one of my favorite evenings.
And the food doesn't stop coming.
The food, isn't it fabulous? And the service, the staff, I just love. I love that night. It's a wonderful time. So,
well, be there. That's
on my calendar.
Be there.
Yeah,
Yay!
excellent.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, tickets will probably go on sale. I don't know, probably in September. Yeah.
And how much are tickets generally?
They'll be $25. Yep, they're $25.
I could eat $25 worth of nachos.
Yay!
Easy.
Yay! And there's door prizes, and there's all kinds of things. So.
And actually, we should step back because I don't think we actually mentioned this, but there's no cost to a patron who wants to use the service, is there?
No, it's not. Everything is included. The only thing that we ask is that people become anyone who has vision loss become a member of VocalEye, and membership is free. The reason we ask for membership is because that way we have your personal information on file, and what that means is you can then use our equipment without having to leave a deposit, because we just find, with 20 people leaving their credit cards or, ID with us, it's just, it's just too risky. So, and too time consuming as well. We've got a crowd at the table and people want to go home, and we don't want to be rushing with your ID or taking any chances with it or delaying people unnecessarily. So we found it's much more streamlined. People just pick up their equipment and then they just drop it off, and we collect it at the end of the show. Right. So all of our services are free to people, free to our members, and anybody who has vision loss, who is self-declared with vision loss, such that our services can be useful to them, can become a member. So it's really easy, and we have a newsletter that goes out once a month, that an e-newsletter that lists all of our upcoming events. And we try to list community events where we can as well, from our friends in the community and other arts-related events that may be of interest.
And so are you always looking for volunteers? Or
Yes, for people who are interested in becoming a theater buddy or volunteering in that way or other ways. Yeah, we definitely need people, yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll definitely link to the site in the show notes. And is that the best way to get a hold of you? Is through the website, or do you have an email? Or
we have an email. It's info at VocalEye VocalEye.ca. Or you can phone if a phone number is helpful.
Sure. Drop the phone number.
604-364-5949.
Perfect. Maybe say that one more time.
604-364-5949.
Ring those phones.
Wealthy benefactors take note.
Oh, yes, please. Shuttle drivers and owners.
So what other shows are you guys doing this year?
Well, we're really excited to extend our partnership with the Fringe Festival this year and we're actually going to be describing one of the shows at the festival, and that, stay tuned for our August newsletter for the full details. This expands on our sort of community access program that we were in consultation with the Fringe last year to find out how we could possibly make the festival more accessible for people who have vision loss. And because they have, I think it's 70 shows over, I don't know how many, 11 venues.
It's crazy.
10 days. I mean, it's a lot. And part of the fun is being able to run from show to show and see as many shows as you can in a day or as many shows as you can over the course of the festival. So we couldn't possibly describe all these shows. Last year, what we did is we had consultants attend the festival to get a sense of what would work. So some of the things that we've come up with now is an accessible program where we have it's in a spreadsheet format, and it indicates which shows would be the most friendly for people who don't have vision. So they would be more text-based, not have a lot of visual elements to them. The show that we're describing is going to be, it's a musical with a lot of people in it. It's Carry On the Musical, and it takes place at the YVR baggage claim. And it sounds like a lot of fun, and we're really excited about that. And so that's a great candidate for description. And then the other shows that we'll list in the program will include shows that people could attend without a describer. And then the ticket pricing, 2 for 1. So you can bring your companion at no charge. And we're also looking at perhaps free Fringe memberships for VocalEye members as well in that partnership.
Nice.
So stay tuned. The August newsletter should have more details about that. There is one thing I can add. We're doing something special that's coming up next season. That's a new location for us, and also the premiere of a play written by playwright with vision loss. This is Ruth Bieber, who told a story at Tales from the Blind Side last year, you may remember, and she has written a play called To See or Not to See, and she is having it produced in Kelowna and has asked for it to be described, and she applied for a grant and she got a little bit of funding, and so we're going to send our describer, Rick Waynes, up there in October, and I believe it's Saturday, October the 21st, the matinee, but the news will be coming out in the September newsletter about that, and it'll be on our website as well. But just sort of a heads up that we're going to be describing something in Kelowna, and we're very excited about that. And it's also the premiere of this play from the community.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Now, your newsletter, is that something that you just send out to your members, or can you sign up through the website?
Anyone can sign up to our newsletter, through the website. Very easy to do.
Perfect. We'll link to that again. Thank you, Steph, for coming by. And
thanks so much for having me.
We have an email. Ryan, tell us about our email.
Our email address is atbanterpodcast@gmail.com.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Well, what's our website, Steve?
I don't know.
Yes, you do.
Ryan, what's our website?
The website address is www.atbanter.com.
And you can also visit us at Aroga Technologies website, which is, Steve?
www.aroga.com. That's AROGA.
Perfect.com. I've been Rob Minot.
I'm Ryan Fleury.
I'm Steve Barkley.
And I'm Steph Kirkland.
And that is a wrap for us. We will see you all next week.
This podcast has been brought to you by Aroga Technologies. Visit Aroga Technologies online at www.aroga.com. That's AROGA.com. Music provided by bensound.com.